Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Hey, welcome everybody. Interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about electric cars and wind turbines and, being green and maybe not being so green. Our guest today is Jose Suarez. He's a U.S. Navy veteran, a graduate of the Virginia Military Institute, a grade class in 1982, BS in civil engineering. He's the president and CEO of JS Consulting. He lives in the suburb of Montreal now. Jose, welcome to the program. Good to see you, Brother Rat.
Good to see you, Brother Rat. It's good to be here with you.
Thanks for joining us. So, Jose, you have spent a lot of time since we graduated from VMI in the mining industry, and you know a little bit about lithium, and that's kind of the gateway, I think, into today's topic, because we're going to be talking about electric cars. You've written some interesting stuff recently about the economics of electric cars and so forth. Can you sort of share with us how you sort of arrived at this? And then I'm going to start to ask some really interesting questions.
Well, I spent a lot of time with clients talking about lithium mining and lithium processing. And I spent, 7 to 10 years working on air pollution control and engineering, really taking a look, how do you reduce particulate emission and also sulfur emissions. So when you combine all three, as you know, Bob, there's a big push now for electric cars. So I really wanted for people to really be more educated on the impact of electric cars. What are they really getting into? Because for our generation, and maybe the generation of your children, sometimes when you buy a car, maybe transportation or maybe something that, like, for example, you and I, we liked a Corvette or something that we, from our youth, that you want to buy it. But now the decision is a little bit different because you have this element of an electric car. And I wanted to really spend some time for people to be educated on what are they getting into when they buy an electric car. So it's kind of a part of what I do with my clients, but also to educate people.
Jose, you did an interesting little presentation. You compared an affordable electric car to an affordable gasoline engine car. And I won't quote exactly the numbers, but over the life cycle of the ownership of the vehicle, the electric car ownership was significantly higher, more expensive. Can you give a high-level breakdown of why you think electric cars are more expensive than the gasoline power car before we get into the carbon footprint analysis?
Okay, so you have to take a look at every single element of the car. So when you take a look at the price of the car, the price of electric car, and again, I don't know, you want to get into proprietary stuff, but all this is information that is widely available. You're correct. I wanted to talk about a very not expensive car that the average person can buy and a reliable brand. So I took a look at the Hyundai Kona, which comes in electric, it comes in gas. Let's take a look at the price of the car. It's the electric version of the car is 27% more expensive than the gas car. When you take a look at the cost of fuel, the cost of maintenance and depreciation, that's about 12% higher for the electric car than the gas equivalent car. Depreciation alone is an area that it really surprised me. But depreciation alone is about 126% higher for the electric car. And people say, well, how can that be? Well, everything right now gets studied on 5-year life for this vehicle. So on 5 years, the people that take a look at the statistics, they look at the electric car and the value of that battery is not that much. While the value for a gasoline combustion engine car and transmission is a lot higher. So the electric car depreciates a lot faster than a gasoline car. And it's really a very surprising number, but that's just the fact. Uh, when you take a look at the cost of the battery replacement, and regular battery may cost you $300 to $500 to replace, but the battery for an electric car can cost you up to $6,000 to replace. And I'm not talking again, for the big high-end, more expensive vehicles, which will be probably more higher than this. So you have a difference here in the thousands of percentage, a car battery, electric car battery versus a regular car battery. And then we start looking at range. With the Kona, you can drive 215 miles without recharging the battery. The gas version of the Kona, you can go 396 miles. So it's quite a bit of a difference between the range. So at the end of the day, is that electric car is going to cost you 43% more than the gas equivalent.
That's just out of pocket operating.
Out of pocket on 5 years, 43% more.
Is that net of government subsidies that
I did not account the government subsidies, but again, is when you're talking about the dollar difference is $33,000 in difference. You can take the subsidy out of $5,000. You still have a pretty big number.
Pretty big difference. Now, let's go back in the supply chain for a second. Lithium, cobalt, rare earth minerals, where are they coming from? And a lot of that used to come from Canada and the United States. We've kind of regulated ourselves out of the industry. Is that correct?
That's correct. So let's take a look at cobalt and lithium. You talk about 60% to 70% coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo and also some Chinese sources. But lithium is 60 to 70% processed by China. So you have really China have a big footprint on lithium alone. Now you're correct on rare earths, which is, in simple terms, the magnets that are needed for different industrial applications. Most of that used to come from the US and Canada, but we, like you said, regulations really push all that mining out of our continent, and China acquire a lot of those assets. So they have about, over 70% of those assets. So
why did we regulate the mining out of Canada and the United States? Was it an environmental concern?
It's an environmental concern. And I think when owners, took a look, and that's what sometimes I advise owners on particular new mining projects, is you have to look at the red tape that is involved for all your permitting. I mean, it could be many, many years and a lot of different stages that you have to pass to get those permits done. So it's an issue of environmental and the cost to get these mines approved. So where China was able to go to Africa and to other places and buy the assets and not have as many roadblocks to this. So that's why that moved that way.
So China doesn't care that they're polluting. So we really haven't reduced the pollution from lithium mining. We've just relocated it.
That's correct. And that's a very good point, because again, if people are looking at buying an electric car because they want to be green and environmentally responsible, they really have to look at many of the components. Obviously, the batteries are coming, a lot of those components are coming from China. But when you look at metals, when you look at plastics, you look at rubber, a lot of those components from that electric car are coming from China. And as you know, Bob, the power source in China is mostly high sulfur coal. So you're actually polluting quite a bit to get those cars manufactured.
Yeah, I may be mistaken on this, but I think I read something recently. There's a very high number of coal-fired power plants being built in China.
Absolutely. They're not going to be able to change that. They have some very cheap coal sources. So that's how they're going to continue to produce power in China. I mean, mean, we cannot
So
be
they
naive.
have no concern about carbon emissions and global
No,
warming
no, they
whatsoever.
actually, I think we need to care about reducing the carbon footprint, but there's many things that we do that really cannot offset the impact of the carbon footprint of China and India. So we can do a lot of things, but still they have to do their part to be able to clean the carbon footprint. The carbon footprint is enormous. And I used to spend a lot of time working in China. And I think, one time in 1 year, I went 15 or 16 times to China. I was spending a lot of time in China. And it's really amazing. You go to a big city like Beijing and the amount of pollution is incredible. Sometimes you cannot see very far.
Mhm.
I was there before the Olympics and after the Olympics. And it's really amazing because the pollution was very bad. You can barely see. But then the government said, stop all vehicle traffic, stop everything, stop manufacturing. And they cleaned it up just for the Olympics. So when the Western world came to the Olympics, they saw a clean country. So they have some serious issues.
They do have serious issues. I've seen some other things, and again, you're knee deep into this. I'm kind of picking up stuff anecdotally, but outside of Paris, I think I saw some photographs of these electric taxis
Yes.
that, and they have no way of recycling and disposing of them. So these vehicles, thousands of them, are piling up outside of Paris. What is the ecological challenge of recycling the batteries and these electric cars?
It's a big challenge, Bob. And when you take a look at how an electric car battery is constructed, it's a series of sandwich plates, metal plates with lithium uh, inside of it, and also with an electrolyte that's going to get the power to be generated. And these batteries are very large. I mean, that's really accounts for most of the weight of the car. It's interesting. An electric car, depending on the brand, can weigh 3 times more than a gasoline car because of the batteries.
Hmm.
So when you take a look at the batteries, first of all, you have to mechanically separate all these components. You have to take all these different plates that you have, take them apart. It's very time consuming. And right now, we don't have a really an economical way to be able to do that. I mean, right now, we're getting into this industry. So we haven't advanced enough to take a look how we're going to separate all those plates, how we're going to dispose of that. So we're heading into a problem as these cars start coming into their life. And again, the more expensive cars may last longer, but some car batteries may last 3 to 5 years. And we're reaching a point now with so many of these cars where you're going to have a problem with the recycling. And I don't think that has been addressed properly.
Who's responsible for recycling a car when you dispose of it?
That's going to be an issue because, and it's not very clear. Is it going to be the manufacturer or is it going to be you?
Hmm.
And that's not very clear.
One of the things also, the car owners do not pay gasoline taxes. So in theory, they're not paying a usage fee for the roads that they drive on. Is that shoe going to fall? Is the government going to figure out that an electric car owner is getting a free ride on the interstate and perhaps start to tax them as opposed to subsidize them?
Bob, I think that's an excellent point. We're going to have a problem with electric cars, first of all, being heavier than gas cars. There's going to be more damage to the roads. There's going to be more
wear and tear, right?
Wear and tear. It's going to be more maintenance required. Eventually, that's going to come back to all of us, whether we own an electric car or not. Eventually, it's going to come back. It's either going to come back for a tax on the electricity they use for the electric car, or it's going to be an assessment that you're going to have for your taxes to repair the roads. So eventually, you're going to have to pay for it.
Now let's go back to the carbon footprint of an electric car. And one interesting fact that I think you quoted, in the United States, 59% of our electrical power is from fossil fuels. So 59% of the power that goes into an electric car is generating, the exhaust from natural gas and coal, right?
Absolutely. So when you take a look at that, and that's an excellent point because Canada is a little bit different. In Canada, 60% of our power comes from water dams, hydropower.
Right. So that's not polluting, right?
It's not polluting. So when you have an electric car in Canada, you can actually say, taking aside the Chinese manufacturing of all the components, okay, it's clean energy. You're going to reduce your carbon footprint, a certain percentage. In the United States, it's different because with 59% being fossil fuels, and then combine that for the cost of the carbon footprint for the manufacturer of that car, you actually have a problem. You actually are increasing your carbon footprint. So this green theory kind of goes away because you're polluting as much. And when you talk about economics, there's something I did not put in my paper. In simple terms, 100 kilowatt battery for an electric car, and you have a charger at home of 10 kilowatts, it will take you 10 hours to charge a battery. Plain and simple.
Well, the infrastructure, and if all of your neighbors bought an electric car at the same time, you might have a brownout situation in your little piece of the electric grid. Is that true?
Absolutely, because right now you can charge an electric car with your standard 120 volt, 20 amp service. But that's going to take you about 10 hours to charge. And that's what is called a level 1 charger. In order to be able to speed that up, you have to go to a level 2 charger, which is 240 amps, 240 volts, 40 amps.
It's like plugging it into your dryer connection.
Absolutely. Or your oven. Now, the average household in the United States is 100 amps. As you get to bigger houses, it's 200 amps. And then the really large houses now are going to 400 amps. But the average individual, to have a level 2 charger, is going to have to make a decision. Do I have a breaker for my oven, or do I have a breaker for my electric car? And this is part where I think the average consumer is going to be affected. They just cannot afford an electric car by number one is the cost of the vehicle, but also what it's going to take to charge the vehicle.
What might, if you got an idea of, if I own an electric car, how much my electric bill is going to go up? I mean, maybe that's kind of hard to say. It depends on how much you use the car. But if you charge it 3 times a month,
well, you're going to charge it more than that because you're going with the average 215 miles. If you're doing, for example, the trip you're doing from your home in Richmond to your new home, it's an hour. So you're going, 70 miles, 80 miles. By the time you get to your new home, you're going to have to charge that vehicle.
Right.
So the issue about the cost is a tough one because every state, every jurisdiction charges different rates for their power. When I used to really follow this a lot many years ago, in the South, some of the power rates were fairly high compared to some other areas in the Midwest. And then the West is very high. So it's going to vary, but at the end of the day it's going to be your flexibility. How far can you go with this vehicle?
Honor, duty, service. At the Veteran Crowd Network, we're focused on our next mission, bringing veterans, veteran-operated businesses, and veteran service organizations together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. That's why we are launching the Veteran Crowd Rewards Program, exclusively for our individual and corporate members. Now you can save on travel, restaurants, goods, and services from brands you trust online and at over 900,000 locations nationwide. Find out more today at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. If you are a veteran-operated business, or a VSO, consider the connections, the network, the benefits, the engagement, and success of working with other veterans again. The Veteran Crowd Network, you paid a lot of dues to join this club.
Hey, we're talking with Jose Suarez. He's the president and CEO of JS Consulting. Jose, I want to shift gears a little bit, but before we go back and talk veterans and impact on your life, can we talk a little bit about wind turbines and wind power a little
Yes.
bit, and maybe a little bit about solar panels, but you do touch on wind turbines a little bit. What's sort of the good and the bad news about the wind turbine industry? What do you see going on there?
Well, the good news is that if you're in an area where you have significant wind, it can be a good power source. The bad news is that it relies a lot on rare earths, on magnets, for the motors, for the rotors. Again, you have a dependency on China for that. The bad news is when they reach a life, 10, 15 years, these are very big pieces of equipment. The blades are very large. It's the recycling of this. And many of them are ending up in trash dumps.
Yeah.
Basically,
there's no way to recycle the turbine blade.
there's no way to recycle them. And then, as you recall, last year in Texas, when they had a massive failure, again, we have to be realistic. You can put in heaters to this turbine, so when we have cold weather, they're not going to freeze. So these particular turbines, they not have those features. But when you take a look at the power distribution, when you start reaching more than 12% of wind turbines or solar power, depending where you live. If you're living in Puerto Rico, you're living in Florida, where you have a lot of sun and a lot of wind, it's okay. When you're moving to areas, here in Canada, for example, where it's very cold, then you have a problem, or you have snow. So to me, that mixture of more than 12% is dangerous. You start going more than 12% on these renewables like wind turbines and solar panels, you're going to compromise something. It's going to hurt.
Something's going to break, and
Something's going to break.
Just big challenges, disposal challenges, the carbon footprint issues. We didn't even get into battery fires and that sort of thing. Hey, let me go back and ask a question. We went to VMI together. What an experience! Not sure we'd want to be a rat again at VMI, but I find that I draw a lot of life lessons from experience both at VMI and in the service. What do you think are some things that you took away from your time in the Navy as a CB that have helped you in your business career?
The understanding of the business. I mean, it's when you look at engineering and construction, what I found is I was very fortunate that when I was in civilian life, and some of my project managers and even some of my field supervisors would tell me that's going to take this long. I said, that's not true. I've done it. I operated the equipment. This is how much it takes. This is what you need to do. So that hands-on knowledge is very critical for the career that I had in engineering and construction. But also the fact that when you take a group of people, you can lead them for a mission. That leadership, the military and VMI and the military give you lessons of leadership that are very, very valuable. And also look at honor. The things that we believe in is, we're all going to make mistakes, but you learn very quickly to be honorable and say the truth, and good things are going to happen. So you and I can probably have a session of many hours talking about all the positives, but I think, learning how to really get things done, and honor and respect and camaraderie and teamwork are great things that, stay with me all my career.
I think the military also gave us failure.
Absolutely.
And it just, not to wax philosophically here, but it seems to me that we're raising a generation of people that have been sheltered from failure, and I think that's a bad thing. What do you think?
I think that's a great point. I think that there's so many failures that happen, not only in the military, but also in civilian life. And you need to learn from those failures. I mean, I used to have young engineers come to me and basically when I used to ask them the question, where are you going to be in 5 years? He said, well, I want to have your job. And I said, well, are you willing to sacrifice a lot of family time? Are you willing to travel around the world to do these things? How prone are you to accept failure? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen not only professionally, but also in your personal life. And they kind of stop it and said, I don't want any of that. I just want to have your position. And he said, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to go through all these steps to be able to advance. But you're absolutely right. This generation is not used to failure, and they're different. They're different than what we're accustomed to.
And I think that, there's a hesitancy to try things, but, I also think that there's this next greatest generation, certainly the young people who've served in the military since 9/11, which is now, 20 years. It doesn't seem like that, but, I think that there's a great cohort of people coming along in that regard. Jose, what, as a closing question, what's the sort of the future hold for you in JS Consulting? What are you, focused upon right now? And what do you think you'll be doing for the next couple of years?
I think to continue to help clients in the mining space. I think lithium is going to be really big for the next 5 to 10 years. To continue to help them, not only to be able to make the right decisions and investments, but also to make those operations a lot cleaner and more environmentally friendly. I think we have to really get to the fact that that's what's going to happen. I think on the side, as much information that I can disseminate about green technology and electric cars and wind turbines for people to be more educated, to really know what are we really getting into. And Bob, with the issue with electric cars, I guess to me, you have to make decisions on economics. You have to make decisions on the environment, and you're going to have to make decisions on society, the impact on society. The economics to me do not make sense to buy an electric car. When it comes to green, especially in the United States, you're going to have a larger carbon footprint buying an electric car. And then I look at the social impacts. The social impacts that people don't talk about is we're putting a lot of people out of work. So a lot of car mechanics and combustion engines, a lot of gasoline station operators are going to be out of work. It's also going to change life. The average person that bought a small car to be able to go to work to do their 2 or 3 jobs is not going to be able to afford an electric car. So it's going to be a different life than the one that you and I and our children have lived. And unfortunately, when I see the advertisement and the writing that is happening on electric cars, it's a little bit of what happened in the 50s and the 60s, when you even have medical doctors saying smoking is great for you. That's the same thing that has happened in electric cars. People are not really digging deep into this on the economics, the true environmental impact, and the social impacts are going to happen. So that's what I want to do for the next couple of years, is to educate people and talk more about these things, and also help our clients on the mining side and the carbon footprint side.
Jose, will you publish, articles or maybe even a book about this? You think you could, we are civil engineers, but, we learned how to write. So you thought about that?
Yes, and I'm in the process of publishing a lengthy article on electric cars.
Oh.
And I'll be publishing that hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months. He's taking a little bit of research. So yes, I plan to do that.
We'll look forward to that coming out. How do people get in touch with you?
I think, through LinkedIn. I'm in LinkedIn and they can find me. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. And if they can send me a friend request or a message that they know you, especially that will be important, because you have good sources.
We will put your LinkedIn profile, and perhaps we could share some of your current writings. Put a link in there to some of the stuff that you've already written about the subject. Jose Suarez, thank you for being a guest. Thanks for stepping into the spotlight today.
It was great to step into the spotlight, Bob. It's great to see you. Thanks for the opportunity, and I wish you the best.
Hey, you've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. My guest has been Jose Suarez, classmate of mine from VMI, class of 1982. He's currently the president and CEO of JS Consulting outside of Montreal, Canada. Jose, I'm going to throw an Army compliment your way. Bravo Zulu to you on your presentation today. Thanks so much for joining us. And that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by Veteran Crowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.